And just staying on the football theme, John, obviously it's fantastic to see the women's team claim their first title last season, the academy going from strength to strength, so many academy players involved within the first team both last season. You think even the impact Leon King's already making this season. It's more than just the first team, it's a full department that covers so many players.
Absolutely right. I mean, Ross Wilson has rightly talked about joined up. He's used the phrase joined up. I've used the word alignment in the past here in RangersTV. I've used the word alignment. You need to be joined up and you need to be aligned. If you look at those aspects you've talked about, women's football. Again, I've said this, I'm going to repeat it. I've said it before. I remember the board meeting when Amy came in. Amy MacDonald came in and talked about we weren't professionalised at that time. We were far from professional. In terms of the support and the infrastructure and the funding we were giving to the women. We professionalised it, the first in the country to professionalise women's football, and you are now seeing the tangible results in our women's football, European football. They win the league. That's what Rangers is all about. In every aspect of the football department, the men's first team, B team, youth team, women's football, first and foremost, win your league. First and foremost, win your league. The women's football did it, and I remember saying to the women after they won the league, I went to the game where they clinched the league, and I remember saying about the pioneers, Glasgow Rangers history, the pioneers, and I said, you're pioneers, you've done this. Here's the bad news, the bar rises, you need to go again, it's Rangers. You need to keep going and keep going and keep going, win that league again and again and again. And that applies to every single team in this football club. Looking then at matters off the field, John, how do you view that aspect of the business at the present moment? I think there's a song that goes simply the best. And when it comes to Rangers, you need to be best in class. How do you recruit and attract a Tom Lawrence who says no to English Premier League clubs to come here? You do that by being best in class, by offering them European football. Best in class also means what you can offer them around that. Player liaison, player support, the finest facilities. And when I look at the Rangers today, the facilities that we offer our players, our staff, we can now say Auchenhowie's best in class. And all that support network around them is best in class. You won't get the players to come if you don't do that. So the infrastructure, the support network around them, and able to play on the big stage of European football. And again, all of that has required and will continue to require investment. The whole infrastructure of this club and around this club, from Auchenhowie to New Edmiston House, to the pitch at Ibrox, to lifts, not fit for purpose lifts, roofs, literally the roofs were falling in, all fixed. I'm told by Stuart they'll last for 40 years. Well, they better, they've cost a lot of money. £23 million hard cash in those 3 years, during the COVID period as well. And when I talk about best in class, again, that goes hand in hand with the bar only ever rising, especially at a club like Rangers. The bar only rises, and again, that applies off the pitch as well. I talked earlier about best in class support and infrastructure for the players. We want and need to provide that for our support as well. I know the areas of this stadium, from toilets to lifts to roofs, and I've talked about it before, that haven't been fit for purpose. In some places remain unfit for purpose. And certainly unfit for the Rangers' purpose and the Rangers' standard. We continue to pour money into that to get it right, to upgrade it. And even, it's interesting, even some of that can be criticised. I actually only heard very recently, somebody said that there was a bit of a wisecrack along the lines of, well, I wonder how many assists New Edmiston House will provide. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. But we will push on with that. We are pushing on with that. I want to provide this support with the very, very best on and off the pitch. And our museum, our venue, will be that. We'll provide that. And if we're providing, and we will be providing this museum, I really want that museum to be there for current generations and future generations. That's best in class. That's what the Rangers support deserve. Blue Sky Lounge. Apparently, somebody was also saying to me, actually Stuart was saying to me, heard somebody having a go at that. Why spend money on that instead of whatever on the pitch? You've got to do both. We are doing both. And Blue Sky Lounge, yes, it's a revenue generator. It has a spin-off benefit in revenue generation terms, but also for our fans. What I mean by that is just over 200 extra seats. I know it's maybe, you might say, not enough. Of course it's not enough. Is it a drop in the ocean? It's progress.
So, John, you actually mentioned the pillars there, and one of those pillars is commercial activity. How do you view that area of the business at the present moment?
Well, I think under James Bisgrove and team, I think it's been a resounding success. That pillar was up and standing before the final one that was to be up and standing which was player trading. If you look at the progress the club's made with sponsors, with partners, all aspects commercial, a resounding success. I've been asked, how do we view the club's performance off the pitch in the last 2.5 years? I have to say that maybe the most honest way of answering that from a personal perspective is this. Rangers, ever since I was a kid, has given me sleepless nights because it's the team I love. The team I love to see winning and the team I hate to see losing. And up until very, very recently, the sleepless nights were not only about on the pitch. I lost a lot of sleep on off the pitch stuff at Rangers, the finances, etc., etc. Especially end of 2019 going into 2020 and COVID, etc. That was a particularly worrying time, I felt. And not just for Rangers, not just for a football club, but for so many businesses. But that was a time where many a sleepless night was had. I am now in a position where I would say to you that my sleepless nights about Rangers, and they're still there, are about on the pitch. That's how it should be. That's a barometer of how far we've come. But it's also an honest assessment of the fact that it's only recently have the 4 pillars been up and it's working. Only recently. Our player trading model, if you really look at it, is months old. In term, not the investment side of it, not the development of players and the investing in players. That's been years in the making, especially under Ross. Fully planned, fully integrated, joined up, planned. We've sat through board meeting after board meeting, looking at that, scrutinising that, questioning that, as a board should do. And we're getting the answers. Look at the player trading model, 2 record transfers out of the club. But it only started in January of this year. That's why it's only recently that my sleepless nights have become virtually all about the football, and that's the way I want it. Part of raising the bar, or the bar rising in terms of expectation, is off the pitch. Let's give our fans the finest facilities we possibly can. I've talked a number of times of how I was embarrassed when Amy came into the main board and presented on the women's football before we professionalised it. I'm no longer embarrassed there. But our facilities for our disabled supporters, and I gave a short answer to it at last year's AGM, unacceptable. Unacceptable. And whilst there'll be a small provision that we can get into the redevelopment in the Blue Sky Lounge, it's only small. That's a piecemeal thing. We need to raise that we need to meet that rising bar of expectation. It is unacceptable for all of us at the club. And at the last board meeting, we did ask for a dedicated presentation on where are we on that. And I've had a very brief telephone update on where we are, because we want, the chairman, myself, the whole board, we want at this AGM to be able to share with our shareholders, our supporters and the wider public our plans, how they look, timelines on what we're going to do, again within the confines of that wonderful stadium, within those confines of what we can and we will do, whatever it takes, financially and otherwise, whatever it takes, we need to get that right. And we've been talking about it, saying, well, it's not just, let's not just do enough. That's not the Rangers way, let's just do enough. Let's be best in class. Within the confines of that stadium footprint and infrastructure and limitations, how can we be the best in the country? And that's, if you like, the challenge to the members of the TRFC board driving this and leading this. That's their challenge. Bring it to us, we will fund it. We need to get that right.
John, how would you maybe address some recent online rumours around takeovers and shareholder interest? How would you address that to the supporters?
Yeah, I mean, it's not unusual for certainly this football club and perhaps other football clubs to be approached by potential investors. And some of those come to fruition. Some of those have come to fruition. Stuart Gibson came to us, and that worked for both parties. John Halstead, that worked for both parties, both terrifically supportive investors in this club, and on that, both in the boardroom and outside the boardroom. I've talked in the past about people like George Latham. George Taylor was outside the boardroom, he's now in the boardroom, but others who are not in the boardroom. We have terrifically supportive investors. And don't take my word for that, just look at the facts. They went to the well time and time again to invest major investment on the pitch and major investment off the pitch. And there has been speculation about the American group in particular recently. One of a number of groups who have come to talk to us, a number of groups or individuals, and I believe that will continue to happen. The bit that surprised me was there was some talk about, in fact, it was when I was in Amsterdam, I saw the noise levels seemed to go up a bit about potential sellers from within the boardroom. I think I know Douglas Park as well as anyone can know Douglas Park. I know him well, and I consider him a friend as well as the chairman of this football club. Douglas isn't a seller. I'm not a seller. In fact, I've recently increased my position above 5%. And when the said American group did approach us, I actually took that as an opportunity to sound out most of our big investors, to say, where are you? What do you think of this? And they rightly said, not only is there no harm in listening, and we do listen, we politely listen to a number of proposals, and that will happen again, I'm quite sure. No harm in listening. It's the right thing to do as well from a fiduciary point of view. So we did. We gave quite a lot of time to that situation, and we listened. But what was very interesting, from John Halstead to Julian Waldhard, people in the boardroom, I said absolutely no interest in selling. Now, I'm also struck by the phrase "never again" in this context. The phrase "never again" was used at the time of regime change, if you remember, back in 2015. And "never again" can mean perhaps different things to different people. What I'm trying to get across is this is a board and a group of investors that really believes in "never again" in terms of one individual or one party calling the shots and owning the club. This is my view, and I know it's a view shared by our current board, that the ownership of Rangers Football Club should rest upon a number of shoulders. You know what can happen when one individual or one entity walks away. People can get bored. People's lifestyle or lives can change. People's priorities can change. So when it's resting, as we've seen at Rangers Football Club, if it's resting on one set of shoulders, things can change. When you have a number of sets of shoulders to carry the load, you're not beholden to one individual walking away, or one individual, something could befall that individual in their life or whatever. That's what never again means to me and my colleagues.